This hasn't happened since 1917.
But it's happening today.
You can line up every
watch.
president since then and say, why didn't you think this could happen again? But that's not productive right now. Have that episode, and I challenge you, show me the 60 Minutes episode a year ago, 2 years ago, or during the Obama administration, or during the Bush administration that said, hey, global pandemic's coming, you got to do X, Y, and Z. And by the way, we would shut down the entire global economy to fight it. Show me that episode. Then you'll have some credence in terms of attacking the Trump administration for not being prepared.
I guarantee you we did.
The Centers for Disease Control tells us that the way this virus is spreading is unprecedented. H1N1 is a pandemic, meaning it's a global epidemic. It's the first flu pandemic in 41 years.
It has the potential to cause an influenza pandemic similar to the one that killed 50 million people in 1918.
Right now, and we all admit that, right now, if we had an explosion of an H5N1, we would not be prepared for that.
All right, today is Tuesday, April 14th, and I have a antibody test. This is a COVID-19 blood test. And this test is supposed to be the new test that allows you to know if you currently have COVID-19 or if you have recovered from COVID-19 and you have the antibodies in your system.
So I have the paperwork here. It's a solid phase immunochromatograph assay. Butchering all of this.
Yeah.
But it tests for the IgG and IgM antibodies that are going to be found in patients that have had coronavirus.
Now, people are wondering where you can get these. I don't know that there's anywhere you can get these at the moment. We know someone in our neighborhood that owns hospitals, and he came back from the States and brought a few extra with him.
He ordered thousands of these. He said they were $10, $12 each.
Yeah.
So if you see them for $30, then they are being marked up considerably.
Well, 30, I mean, you know, if somehow you were able to buy this individually,
$30 wouldn't be that big of a deal.
No, that'd be great. I mean, if you can get it for $100, that might be great. But
if you're buying bulk.
Yeah, it should cost $10 to $12 is what he was saying.
This is also approved by the FDA. So this is a approved test that we know are being administered in Texas, in the United States, maybe throughout the world.
The reason why I am excited to take this test is because I was incredibly sick at the end of 2019, right before New Year's, and just a few days before Christmas, I flew into Atlanta's airport. And when you do the math, you know, with the amount of time that it takes to start showing symptoms, I could have gotten it in the airport and then after Christmas gotten really sick. And I felt horrible. I had a horrible cough. I had the tremors and the shakes, and like it was awful. So I am hoping that I test positive, not currently for this, but test positive for the antibodies.
Because you have not been sick since that trip.
Correct. And it was particularly bad. It seemed worse than the normal flu, but of course, at the time I thought it was the flu.
Well, and then the week after, we went on a ski trip, and both you and your wife were coughing harder than I've seen many people cough. I mean,
Yeah.
I was waking up at all hours of the night, hearing you guys in the other room just coughing nonstop.
Yep. So, if I test positive for the antibodies, this actually means a lot, because everything that I'm seeing online is saying that the first person to test positive in the United States was in January.
This morning, the State Department taking an extraordinary step, issuing a level 4 do not travel to China advisory for the entire country. It comes after alarming news in Chicago, the CDC announcing a new case of coronavirus, the first time it's been spread person to person in the U.S.
And although there's been some speculation if it was in the States prior to that, there's been no proof of that. So it would be weird if this is the first time. I don't know if this is actual proof.
It can't be the first, but we would be putting it out there.
Yeah, I just haven't seen anything else online, no videos, no articles about somebody testing positive and showing that, yes, I had this well before January 2020. So let's open this thing up. And
are you nervous right now?
I'm incredibly nervous for two reasons. One, I'm a wimp and I don't want to have to prick my finger. It's just weird that I have to do it myself. And
You're scared of pricking yourself?
well, if somebody else was doing it, I'd be fine. But the fact that I have to do it myself is weird. Do you want to explain how this test works? You've done a little bit of research
Yeah,
here.
so I've read the instructions, and basically the way this works is you have different cells here, and in the middle cell, you're going to put a drop of blood.
Yeah.
In the cell behind it, you are going to put some of this buffer solution, and basically it works with capillary action, so the water or the buffer in the back is going to start seeping through the material, kind of like a wet toilet paper would continue to get wet. It's going to touch the blood, pick up the blood, and then continue to take it into the third little cell. And the third cell has 3 strips. One of them you can see, it's blue, and that is the control. And so you know the test will be done once the blue changes to red. If it does not change to red, then that means this test was faulty because the buffer never made it to the end.
Okay.
But before the blue control are 2 different hidden antibodies. One's the IgG and one's the IgM. And if it goes through there and it causes a reaction, your blood causes a reaction to the antibodies that are built into this strip, they will change color. They'll make a marker. And so you could test positive by having one or both of these strips showing up. Now, the IgG antibody is the one that you get much later. It's the antibody that you would have months later after being infected. The IgM is the antibody that you would have during your infection and while you're sick. Maybe it sounds like a week or 2 after the sickness you would still have it. But since you have not been sick anytime recently, we would suspect that the first strip, the IgM, would be negative because you are not sick unless you got
I'm not currently contagious.
unless you have the virus now from going to, you've been going to
Burger King.
But if you're fine just being here in Puerto Rico, we would suspect only one of these would show up. So I think now, let's set this here. And what is the plan? You're going to prick your finger, you're going to run this experiment, and then we will do a timer. You're supposed to read this within 10 minutes, although the doctor said he was getting results as late as 20 minutes. So maybe we should do both. We should read.
I think we should do 10, 15, and 20 minutes.
Just to be sure.
The doctor said that he did tests with this test on patients who had tested positive for COVID-19 in his hospital
Office,
or whatever.
maybe with the
in
other
state,
tests
with
that they
the
have.
nose swab test. So we've got the iPad. We will set the timer. It's so freaking suspenseful. I wish it would just do it. But we're going to continue the show, and then in 10 minutes we're going to look at this. 15 minutes we'll look at it. 20 minutes. He said it didn't show up until 20 minutes that his buddy, who currently has it, and his buddy is currently
Infectious?
Yeah, infectious. It took 20 minutes, but both bars showed up.
Okay.
So this is the needle here. I'm ashamed of how I'm about to wimp out from pricking my finger just a littlest bit. But here we go. That wasn't bad at all. All right, so got the blood in there. Is that enough, you think? Maybe I'll do a little bit more.
Should be good.
Okay, so I'm putting in the buffer solution now. And this should be the solution that pushes the blood over. Timer is going. And I'm gonna put some paper over the top of this so I'm not tempted to look at it.
So are you less worried now? You've gotten half of it done.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like this is such a long shot. I'm sure it's like a 99.9% chance it was just the flu, but it's so strange how many people we've spoken to, very close friends, very close family, my parents.
Who have similar stories?
Everyone's like, I think I had it in January. I think I had it in December. And maybe that's just all a coincidence, and it's because it's what we've been hearing.
Well, this was the question I asked you off camera before we started filming today is, when you had the flu, we assume, back at New Year's, did you think you were going to die at all? Is it like, oh, I'm really sick, but like the thought of death? I mean,
No.
You didn't even think of going to the hospital.
No. There has been one time when I was sick, I had food poisoning before, and I remember thinking...
I think you talked about that. You went to a hospital in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I was like, I might be dying. And I woke Katie up and I was like, we have to go to the hospital now. I think I'm dying. And it was just food poisoning. That was really, really bad. So it wasn't that bad.
Well, then the second half of my question is, if you knew all the information we know now, and you were going through what you were going through during New Year's,
I would have been freaking out.
you would have been freaking out.
I would have been freaking out for sure because I was extremely sick. Probably top 5 sicknesses of my life.
Wow.
And then if I had just been hearing the news that like everyone's dying from this, everyone's gonna die from this, then maybe I would have gone to the hospital thinking that I could die.
My whole family was at my house, and you were staying at the house. My dad had some kind of cough during Christmas or around that time. I don't know the timeline if he got it from you or he had it before you even showed up, or it was after my niece was born he had the cough. When he was in the hospital when my niece was born, he was staying away from Aniston because he did not want to get her sick. So I don't know. This would open up a crazy, Pandora's box, because then I would want to know, well, did my dad get it? And my dad's past 70. He's healthy, but he's old. And so it's just like, could he have gotten it? And it wasn't a big deal to him at all. It was obviously a big deal to you because you felt very sick, but.
Yeah. And, I think Katie caught what I had, and her symptoms were extremely minor compared to mine.
She had the cough, but she never had the
she
fever.
She said she never had a fever and the chills and all the
body aches.
Yeah, it was crazy what I was going through.
Well, while we're waiting on this, do you want to start this off like we normally do with the numbers?
Yeah, let's go over the numbers here.
Wow. We are very close to 2 million total cases.
1.985 million cases.
Yesterday, did you say we would be at 2 million today?
I just said we'd be close, probably.
But we are 15,000 away.
Deaths, 125,000 worldwide. Let's check out the U.S. 605,000 total cases in the U.S., 25,000 deaths. Let's go check out the...
If you do the log total cases, we are definitely flattening out.
Yeah. And if you look at the daily death chart here, it looks like the last 2 days have been down a bit, still very high numbers, 1,500.
The lowest 2 days, maybe
dead.
In a week. Maybe there's that one day that's just April 6th might still be within the week, but.
So I think, Cuomo's been saying that we've seen the worst of it as long as it doesn't restart.
I'm curious to look at, I want to see what Florida is doing, because Florida is one of those. Florida has 348 new cases. Let's see what they had yesterday. Florida had 1,000 new cases. In terms of deaths, Florida is at 38 new deaths yesterday, and today, which is technically yesterday, 25 deaths. So I wish you could click on Florida or any state and see the same metrics that we see for the country. I'd be curious to know if other states are starting to plateau out as well with all these quarantine measures, or if Florida now is just starting to see the spring break effect. And maybe that's not even fair, because all the people that got it at spring break are now not in Florida and they're elsewhere around the country.
Maybe. Yeah, I still don't know how much spring break would have spread coronavirus compared to concerts and sports games and Disney World. Seems like Disney World, people are coming into contact with things more than they do on the beach.
Well, speaking of concerts, I guess we have a few minutes before we read the results. Ticketmaster was trending last night or this morning, and Ticketmaster has a policy where they say they will no longer refund tickets for concerts that are canceled.
What?
That seems insane, right? Like,
how is that legal?
I don't know, but there's a lot of, the big show I was excited about was Motley Crue's back together with Poison and Def Leppard, which I've never seen Poison. I've never seen Def Leppard. I've never seen Motley Crue. They were going to do a stadium tour. We're talking all the fireworks. It'd be crazy. And I think Tommy Lee came out yesterday and said they're not canceling the tour yet because they think by June, when it starts, we'll be over all of this. I have no hope that this is going to happen in June. That whole tour is going to be canceled. I think most tours are going to be canceled. And so the fact that Ticketmaster at this moment is saying they're not going to refund any tickets seems like a horrible idea. But you know how much people have hated Ticketmaster for decades, Yeah. I remember when Pearl Jam got all upset about Ticketmaster in the 90s. So I don't know. was kind
That's
of shocked.
unbelievable. I mean, that'll be the biggest class action lawsuit of the year, if that's the
I
case.
can't imagine I think they're just trying to stay optimistic and say that we're not going to have to cancel tickets.
Wait, are you saying that going forward, they're just putting something in the contract that says we're not going to refund if this is canceled going forward, but something that's been canceled already,
Maybe.
or that you already had tickets
But
for?
even if, say you buy tickets to go see Taylor Swift in her tours in August, or you get the Motley Crue tickets, I guess those have gone on sale, but let's say you have them now, but the first show is not until June, all the way through August, September, I think. What if they cancel that whole tour today, or they cancel it in 3 weeks from now?
Well, I'd be interested what incentivizes the artist to even put the show on. If they can keep the money and not have to pay to actually do anything, and they just get all the money.
Dude, fans would be so mad, though. If
They could be like, it's for safety, sorry
if
guys.
Ticketmaster upheld that, I would hope that the bands would say,
Oh man, 35 seconds. What do you think's
Now-
gonna happen?
what do I think's going to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, I think
You're hoping I had it, right?
I want you to have it so bad.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to be reasonable and say, like, everything we know from the news,
Yeah.
there's no chance that you had coronavirus on New Year's. There's no chance.
Yeah.
But it is a little suspicious, and it doesn't remove the idea that maybe all of these really bad flu illnesses are now not being looked at. Maybe you just had one of the worst flus ever,
Yep.
and maybe a lot of the world has this flu.
All right. So far, nothing has happened. It hasn't even. So the blue.
Oh no, it's not even red yet.
Yeah.
So the test isn't complete.
Yeah. It hasn't moved over yet. So
Let's wait the recommended.
should I add more of the buffer?
I don't think so. I mean, if this test fails and the blue control doesn't go red,
Yep.
we have 2 more tests to do.
Yeah.
And at this point, here's the question that I have, because we have these tests. It's like, what do you do with the tests? We have this buffer solution that's not in a sealed package, so it's not like, I don't even know if that buffer solution is going to stay for a week or 2.
It's so little in here anyway. I
He gave
wonder
us just
what this
enough.
is.
He just gave us, see, a medical facility, they might have some kind of bigger case of buffer.
I see.
I remember in labs you would like make the buffer solution, but he just split it all out evenly so that everybody that ordered tests would get the solution to run the tests. But I was thinking of mailing these all back to the country, back to the U.S., giving my parents one, giving Kristen's parents one. I wanted to give one to Pi and Mike Kelly because they were both traveling abroad. Pi is convinced he and his family had it. I wanted to do this experiment many more times, but we just got a lot less tests.
Yep.
I thought I was going to have 10, and I only got 3.
Yep.
So I'm questioning now, like, what are we going to do with these tests? Because in a week or 2, even in a Ziploc bag, that buffer solution could be dried up or gone, and then you can't run the test.
Yeah.
I wanted to hoard it and think, like, if I started feeling sick, maybe I could take that. But say I take this test and it comes back positive, is a hospital going to take my test and say, oh, thank goodness you ran your own test, we could admit you? None of these tests, if you're positive, they're not going to go into the database. It's not going to be counted with all the other numbers of tests. So it's just kind of strange to have these tests and know one way or another without being able to use the test in a medical facility, in a nationalized study.
Yeah, I know. It's
So
very
I
strange.
kind of feel like if this test doesn't work and it's still blue, then we should just run another one right now and put more buffer on it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of wasting tests also, but
Well, to me, it seems like before we open up another test, we only have 3 total, we should potentially add more blood and more buffer to this test. It appears like the buffer and blood never made it over to the sensor.
well, I don't know that you'd add more blood. You just need more buffer.
But the blood could be all dry now.
Yeah. Or we wait to see what other people in the community have done.
I mean, we can call the doctor and see what he recommends we do. I don't want to waste these tests. I feel like these tests are so rare.
All right. We still have, is this 2.5 minutes until the 15-minute marker?
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about the market yet. I'm sure you have a lot to say, but I woke up to Wells Fargo having their quarterly report came out, and their earnings was just 1 cent per share, where the estimated cents per share was 33 cents. Now, I don't know if that was 33 cents with coronavirus involved, or if that was what they were predicting, say, Q4, and they were saying going into the new year, we will have 33 cents per share growth.
Breaking news just out from Wells Fargo with their first quarter results. It looks like the company is coming in with diluted earnings of 1 cent a share. The street was looking for 33 cents. But again, you are talking about a huge build in their credit reserves, just like we saw with JP Morgan earlier this morning. Their provision expense for loan and debt securities was $4 billion. That's up $3.2 billion from the first quarter a year ago. The company says that the share impact of reserve build and impairment of securities is 73 cents a share. They also say that they saw a 6 cent a share impact from the redemption of their Series K preferred stock. So again, you're going to be looking at numbers that are not going to match up because of the huge reserves the banks are building, because of what they anticipate will be bad loans, just because of the situation, because of the economy. If you're looking at the first quarter revenue, though, that was below what the street had been anticipating too. $17.7 billion versus the $19.24 billion the street had been looking for originally. We'll continue to keep an eye on it. Stock's up by about 1.5%.
Yeah. The morning, Wells Fargo was up 1.5% on that news.
It's priced in, bro.
And then the second one I wanted to talk about was Boeing. Boeing, I don't know that they had their quarterly report, but there was this news story that came out of CNBC that said airlines have canceled a staggering 150 737 MAX orders.
Breaking numbers out of Boeing, and he's come to us live from Chicago. What can you tell us about Boeing's numbers this time around, Phil?
They're not good, Dom, and not surprising given the fact that we are now 1 year past the grounding of the 737 MAX. That means for some of these contracts, for some airlines and leasing companies, this is when they're able to say, you know what, we're going to cancel that order or we're going to convert that order. As you take a look at shares of Boeing, the reason it's moving lower is because here are the numbers for March and for the first quarter. March orders, negative 119 commercial airplanes. March cancellations included 150 of the 737 MAX. We knew about 75 of them coming from the leasing company Avalon. There are another 75 from other customers, so a total of 150 MAX cancellations. Q1 orders, when you also take those cancellations along with accounting adjustments, negative 307 commercial airplanes. The backlog for the MAX now stands at 4,079 planes. That's down 13% compared to the end of the first quarter last year. They also announced deliveries today, commercial airplane deliveries, 20 in the month of March, 50 for all of Q1.
I noticed, maybe it was on yesterday's show.
Boeing's down 4%, but still.
Okay, it's not that much. I watched Jim Cramer yesterday, and he has been saying for the last few weeks, like, guys, don't get excited about these jumps in the stock market. The real crash is coming. There's no reason that things should be this expensive. And, we are in a depression or recession for sure. And then yesterday he's like, I don't know, I'm starting to feel pretty good about things. Maybe we're going to come out of this okay. Maybe we've already hit the bottom. I'm like, how did you change your mind so fast?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Well, I've noticed that with myself. I keep feeling very optimistic because we keep wondering where we are in things. And right now it feels like New York City is decreasing. The numbers are flattening out. Maybe we're about to beat this. And I don't know how you reopen. That's the next part of it. But we're quickly going through the phases, right? We are now getting over the fear part of it. At least a lot of the country is. And what is that going to look like? Here we go. You can start the next 5.
Sure.
This will be the 20 minutes that he suggested. Oh, we got a color change?
Still has nothing. No change at all.
Oh boy.
So it's like the test is not working. Let's add some more buffer.
Now at this point, I don't know, since we're breaking the protocol by adding more buffer, I don't know where this puts us. If it comes up negative, should we run it again? If it comes up positive, should we run it again? I mean, if it comes up positive,
the buffer shouldn't have done anything.
Yeah, it just seems like there's not magically some other antibody floating around that just happens to make a positive test for coronavirus.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember back in the days of taking all these biology labs, if false positives were that common. Because a false positive would mean something is binding to that agent in...
Oh, look, now it's moving across.
You see it?
Yeah.
All right, let's put the... Let's add to the suspense. You want to put another 5 minutes, or
Well, I'm wondering, like,
if it ever?
it never was wet before, and now I'm watching it move across. So, but I'm worried that my blood's all dry now. So we didn't do it correctly or something. I don't know what to think. We do have 2 more tests. Don't worry, guys. We're gonna get a real answer here. I've got some other things that I want to talk about, but
I don't know if you have time to.
yeah, it's like I can't think about anything except a stupid test.
I mean, if I look at Jets, which is the ETF for all airlines, I mean, from their high back in January, they're down 56%. When the market crashed, they're down 52%. I don't know if that's fair to look at all stocks, but you know, it's kind of an average. So Boeing is down an extra 10%, which is really not that crazy, you would think, considering all the bad news Boeing's had with the 2 airlines that have gone down and the MAX 737. You know, all of that, they're wondering if they just have to scrap that entire plane or if they can fix that through a few modifications and some software changes, but it's looking pretty bad.
All right, so we have 20 seconds now, but I feel like the test just started 4 minutes ago. I don't even feel like this is a legitimate time to look at this, but I guess I can go ahead.
Or do you want to just set it for 5 more minutes, and that will now be 10 minutes since the adequate buffer has been added?
Sure, we'll go for another 5 minutes. People are going to think that we're doing this like on purpose to stretch out the
We did exactly
suspense.
what they said to do and exactly what the doctor said to do, and it definitely now is moving. Like you can see the strip turning wet, so it's definitely going, but did we mess up by not having the blood wet? That part of it, I don't know. I mean, if you read those instructions, there's a lot of, I mean, they say don't read it after 15 minutes. And now we're well past.
All right, I'm looking early. Okay, so.
Is the blue red now?
Yes, the blue is now red.
And there's nothing
And there's nothing.
So, it appears you do not have antibodies for COVID-19.
Well, I'm still not convinced that. I think this test has been going for just a few minutes. I mean, the doctor said we should wait 20. I think that's been going for less than 5.
Okay, why don't we set this timer for 15 minutes? Get on with the show.
Okay.
And then we will look to see if any line, like, I think he was saying the lines could be very faint.
Well,
and you think you were sick, what, 3 to 4 months ago? 3.5 months ago.
Yeah.
So there's a chance that the IgM will not be there. But then the IgG could just be there in a very, very small amount.
But I'm also nervous the blood was dry. Like, I'm afraid we did it wrong.
Yeah.
We can wait for this test to complete. We'll go on with the show. We'll wait for this test to complete. You would expect the solution to have pulled some blood over, right? Like, it should be a little red. It's not. It's clear all the way across, which to me means the blood had dried, and then it's just getting the solution.
I don't know that it pulls the whole blood and the part of the blood that's red. Like, I don't know what it's attaching to and pulling. Like, say there's an antibody in your blood, in the serum of your blood, that's not attached to anything. It's not red. It's a tiny little molecule. What if the buffer is grabbing that and pulling it out? You know?
Yeah, but if it's dry, doesn't that make it harder to do? I don't know. As you can tell, I really want to test positive for this, so I know I'm through it and over it. But
has anyone else ran the tests?
Well, the doctor's telling people not to run the test and wait for our video to come out.
Governor just switched the curfew back to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
How indecisive is our government? They're constantly changing things and like saying there's a curfew, and then an hour later there's a quarantine, and then we're doing the license plate thing, and now we're not doing the license plate. People are upset about like indecision from the governors and the president. The governor here in Puerto Rico seems to be flip-flopping as much as anybody.
Flipping and flopping. Yeah, I agree. Well, I guess if we've got a few minutes now to talk, I want to talk about the Trump press conference yesterday. And as I was exporting yesterday's video, Trump went live, or maybe he had already gone live, but I just started watching it. And I feel like the press conference was insane. More insane than normal. Now, fair warning, if you are a super Trump fan who gets your feelings hurt easily, you can turn this video off now. because I'm going to say some negative things about Trump.
Do I have to leave?
I felt like, first of all, he created this weird propaganda video where it's like, here's all the good stuff I did during this time.
Well, we've asked them to accelerate whatever they're doing in terms of a vaccine.
We will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency. Medicare patients can now visit any doctor by phone or video conference at no additional cost.
The first 1 million masks will be available immediately.
As there were more cases, and it was clear that it was spreading out of China, where it originated, the president took this move that he was widely criticized for by Democrats and even some Republicans at the time, which was he halted a number of flights from China into the U.S. The idea was to halt the spread of the disease, keep transmissions to a minimum. He was accused of xenophobia. He was accused of making a racist move. At the end of the day, it was probably effective because it did actually take a pretty aggressive measure against the spread of the virus.
When I watch it, I just felt like this is so weird. This feels like something out of China or North Korea or something to me.
1984.
Yeah, at the very least, it feels like a campaign video. You know, here's how amazing I am. You should vote for me.
Well, that's what I was thinking about when I saw the video this late last night, this morning. Was that, you know, when you're the president, you are running for re-election, you will have campaign videos. But has anyone ever shown something like that in the press room?
No, it would be stupid to do that.
Well, stupid's not the right word. Is it
inappropriate?
Inappropriate or
pointless?
Illegal? Or I don't say pointless either. If you're running for re-election, I could see where you want to start spinning things correctly. Not correctly, but spinning things to get ahead of the curve. I'm just saying, is it not constitutional, which probably is not even in there, but is it illegal or is it frowned upon or is it...
Because he's just like using this...
It's never been done before. Like, that's kind of the direction I'm going.
He's using this time that should be to educate the American people instead to advertise his campaign or something. Yeah, I thought it was super weird. And then it got worse because, of course, all of the reporters jumped all over him. And they're like, why did you feel the need to do this? I've never seen anything like this.
Who created it?
Yeah, and Trump's saying stuff like, oh, we just created it 2 hours ago, and I've got 100 more clips that are even better than that. And I could make you another video that's way better than that one. It's just like strange stuff that a child would say, you know, like getting in a fight in elementary school or something.
But to be fair, not fair is the right word, to be consistent, Trump's been saying childish things for years now.
Yeah.
So I'm getting to the point where, like, I don't know what is out of the ordinary anymore because it's so ordinary. We haven't seen this done necessarily in the press room, but it's not like people were saying hashtag Trump meltdown last night. And maybe you even said, did you see Trump melt down last night? And I watched it and I was like, I just don't know. It's weird, but I don't know if it's any different than stuff he's done before.
I've never seen a video like that played in this room. It looks a bit like a campaign ad. Who produced that video for you?
That was done by a group in the office, and it was done we just put some clips together. I could give you, I'll bet you I have over 100 more clips, even better than them. They were just pieced together over the last 2 hours. That was just, we have far better than that. That's nothing compared to some of them.
This was produced here in the White House.
Yeah, this was done by Dan and a group of people, and they just put it together in a period of probably less than 2 hours.
Why did you feel the need to do that?
Because we're getting fake news, and I like to have it corrected.
I didn't feel like he melted down. I just felt like it looks like he might be concerned that the narrative is not going the way he has planned, and there's an election, and he's a little scared, or he's getting ahead of, I don't say he's getting ahead of the media, it's like happening right now, but he's now trying to set a narrative. But I don't know that to me that looked like a meltdown as much as it just looks like, did he melt down when the vagina grabbing video was released? Like, so many crazy things have happened under Trump, and he said so many insane things throughout the whole process that did you feel like he looked any different last night than what he's done all 4 years?
I did feel like that. I feel like he obviously he does dumb stuff all the time, but this time he felt incredibly weak and
like insecure,
worried and insecure, all of these things that you don't want your president to feel. And this girl started coming after him about
timelines.
Yeah, well, your video only showed what you did in March. So then Trump starts arguing about, well, in January we had 0 cases and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about February. And he's like, in March I did blah. And I'm not talking about March. I'm talking about February. Your entire video left out an entire month.
He talks about what he did in January, and it bought us all of this time, and look what happened in March. And she said, the time that you bought back was February, and what did you do in February?
Yeah.
And he just seemed to not want to talk about that.
All I'm saying is this: how do you close down the greatest economy in the history of the world when on January 17th you have no cases and no death? When on January 21st you have 1 case and no death. 1 case. Think of that. Now, we're supposed to close down the country, but here's what happened. When on January 31st I instituted the ban, Joe Biden went crazy. He said, you don't need the ban. He didn't go crazy. Like, he didn't even know what the hell the ban was. But he didn't go crazy. But he did say, he did call me xenophobic. Wait a minute. He called me xenophobic. He called me a racist because he has since apologized and he said I did the right thing. So when you say, why didn't you this? Every Democrat thought I made a mistake when I did it. I saved tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of lives by putting
time that you bought. The argument is that you bought yourself some time. You didn't use it to prepare hospitals. You didn't use it to ramp up testing. Right now, nearly 20 million
you're so
people
disgraceful.
are unemployed.
It's so disgraceful the way you say that. Let me just listen. I just went over it.
Or this rant supposed to make people feel
I just went
confident
over
in
it.
an unprecedented crisis.
Nobody thought we should do it, and when I did it,
But what did you do with the time that you bought?
you know
The
we
month
did.
of February. That
You know what we
video
did?
was a gap.
What
The
do you
entire
do?
month of February.
What do you do when you have no case in the whole United States?
You had cases
when
in February.
excuse me, you reported it. 0 cases, 0 deaths on January 17th.
February, the entire
January.
month of
I said in
February. Your video
January.
has a complete gap.
On
month of
January
February.
30th.
What are your
I mean, he's gotten away with it so many times before where somebody asks him a question and he doesn't even respond to that question and he says something that's ridiculous, a lie, or like a joke, and then people start giggling or something, and then somehow he just gets out of it and he doesn't have to answer that question. He's done that all the time. But this was so egregious because she kept saying, I'm just asking about February. I don't care about anything else. February. And he's listening to her. And you can see the wheels turning, and he's like, I can't mention February. And then he just keeps going back from January to March, January to March, January to March.
What did your administration do in February with the time that your travel ban bought
A
you?
lot. A lot. And in fact, we'll give you a list. What we did, in fact, part of it was up there. We did a lot. Look. You know you're a fake. You know that. Your whole network, the way you cover it, is fake. And most of you, and not all of you, but the people are wise to you. That's why you have a lower approval rating than you've ever had before, times probably 3. And when you ask me that question, let me ask you this: why did Biden apologize? Why did he write a letter of apology?
Right now care
No,
about
that's
why
very
Joe
important.
Biden didn't apologize
Why
to
did
you.
the Democrats think that I acted too quickly? You know why? Because they really thought that I acted too quickly. We have done a great job. Now, I could have kept it open. And I could have done what some countries are doing. They're getting beat up pretty badly. I could have kept it open. I thought of keeping it open because nobody's ever heard of closing down a country, let alone the United States of America. But if I would have done that, we would have had hundreds of thousands of people that would right now be dead. We've done this right, and we really have done this right. The problem is the press doesn't cover it the way it should be.
And I feel like Trump has done as good of a job as any other president. I know people find that to be
Wait, you're just
outrageous.
condemning the president, but now you're saying...
I am condemning him for the way that he acted yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't feel like he has any reason to create propaganda videos and pretend to answer questions when he's not. I think that it's partly the fault of the media. They're always trying to get him to say something that they can make a headline out of. But if he just was very consistent and was like, when this started getting bad, I made a very difficult decision and I did it when I thought it needed to be done. Obviously, if I had done it sooner, of course it would have been better.
Yeah.
But we didn't know it was this serious back then. That should be the end of the discussion. He's telling it like it is. He's admitting fault, but at the same time saying, hey, anybody would have made the same mistake I did. In fact, many Democrats said that I was racist or xenophobic for shutting down planes from China or whatever he did.
Well, what I was looking at videos recently about, is it Trevor Noah? Is that the guy's name? Who's the guy on The Daily Show?
I think Trevor Noah.
He was just talking in February, I believe, beginning of February or end of January, I have to look, but Trump was doing this ban on other countries, not letting people in from certain countries. And the joke was that he picked all these Muslim countries and then he picked like a few random ones just to throw you off, you know?
Okay.
But that was all happening around the same time. And the idea there was that how dare we prevent people from coming into America based on this? But what people are saying Trump should have done was ban all countries coming into the United States. Now, maybe if the media was saying we're banning everybody because of coronavirus, and we're not banning just some Islamic countries because of radical terrorism, it would have a completely different narrative. I understand those are two different ideas, but the idea that Trump could have come out at that same time that Trevor Noah was making fun of that thing and said, we're going to ban all countries, I just don't see how America would have gone for that. I don't think any of us would have. I mean, back then, I was not sure that this was going to be a big deal.
Of course, and I'm not even sure if we're currently locked down. So I got into an argument with a buddy last night for an hour and a half, and he hates Trump so much. I mean, he could barely breathe. He was telling me, you know, everything that Trump has done wrong, and I'm like, listen, I'm happy to debate individual things, but you hate Trump so much that you're just making these blanket statements about how Trump did a horrible job and Bernie would do a great job. And I was like, fine. What would Bernie have done? And he was like, Bernie would have shut down the borders earlier. And I'm like, I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah.
Bernie is all about keeping the borders open and we're not going to be xenophobic and all these things. If anything, Bernie would have done it later because he would have been so afraid of being called a racist or whatever it may have been. So I don't believe that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, the ventilators, we didn't get enough ventilators. And I'm like, I have not heard a single case in the United States of a hospital not having enough ventilators. I heard 1,000 cases of hospitals being afraid they weren't going to have enough. I have never heard of a hospital in the United States that's been overloaded or that doesn't have enough ventilators.
Well, one thing I would like to know, and you'd have to do a lot of research, but how soon did other countries around the world block flights from China? And did any of them block, I mean, we know countries block flights entirely, like islands and Singapore and New Zealand. People said no more flights at all, but how many places in Europe, like when did they do their policy? Because I still have a hard time with the timeline. That America somehow was the last country to have to deal with this in the world, yet we're one of the largest, economic forces in the world and have more international travel or equal international travel as so many other places.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me that like China just didn't send people over to San Francisco, to Seattle, to LA, and we're all these weeks behind everybody else. That still doesn't make sense in my mind how that's true.
Yeah.
But if somehow that is true, when did the countries that were a few weeks ahead of us, when did they start saying no more China flights? No more flights from other countries, Because we know when Trump did that.
That's the thing.
We lived in America and we saw it.
It seems like almost every country in the world is in a very similar position to us right now. So I do not like Trump as a human being, but I still have to be fair and look at each individual thing he's done and hasn't done. And although he's acted like a jackass on TV, every time I see him on TV, I can't point to anything that he's done with the coronavirus and been like, oh, what an egregious mistake. It seems like he shut...
Well, then how do you make sense of some of the stuff where he says, like, we're at 15 cases and we will soon be back to 0? Was policy being done right then, and he was just saying something kind of opposite?
He was obviously wrong. He was obviously wrong. And when he said he hopes that we're going to be back to work by Easter, he was obviously wrong. But when I hear that, I don't hear Trump saying, people who hate Trump hear, I'm going to kill Americans so that the stock market price goes up. That's literally what a lot of my friends hear when he says that. And I'm like, guys, he's not saying that. That's so extreme. That's crazy. And then there's proof of that because he listened to the doctors and saw the numbers, and we didn't open up on Easter. We're still on lockdown. So I just feel like...
Do you want to get into some of the other video?
Well, let's go. I mean, we got a minute here. I think we can go ahead and look at this.
Okay.
And what are we gonna say when
it's
this
still negative?
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning of this, I expected 99.9% chance it's going to be negative. It's probably wishful thinking that I had it back then. But I'm so nervous now that I didn't do the test correctly and the blood dried. Maybe we wait and talk to the doctor.
I think we should wait and talk to the doctor.
The other thing that I could do before this whole thing dries is I could prick my finger again and just like put it on the bars and see. I don't want to waste another one, but I don't want to waste this one either if this one still has life in it.
The scientist in me, though, inside is saying this is so wrong to like break all the protocols. Like, this is the definition of biased science, that we are trying to like undo mistakes or things that we did wrong.
But obviously, if I did
the
something...
The correct thing to do is to open another test and to run it all over again. Like, there's so many things in the data, in the instructions that say, don't do this, 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 and this. We're already...
Let's look at it. All right, so it's very clear. It's red, which shows it's a good test. That means it made it all the way across, and there's no other blue bars. Is that what we're looking for?
Yeah, just any kind of other marker where there's...
So yeah, there could be one that says I currently have it, and one that says I have gotten over it. There's not even a hint of that. But at the same time, there's not even a hint that the blood moved either.
So at this point, I feel like since tests are limited, I don't know what to do with the other tests, but if we run another one, we're only going to have one left for whatever other reason.
Yeah.
I feel like we should talk to the doctor, and then we should also maybe wait to see, because I bet a lot of people tonight are going to run tests, and
But we would expect, like, the majority of people...
You don't think there's someone else in this community that feels like they've traveled a lot, been in touch with people from China maybe, and had symptoms much earlier, like a month ago, 2 months ago, that they are like you, where they think, I definitely got sick, and I think I got it. Like, I'd be interested to know what their results are. But at this very moment, the blood thing does make me concerned that the blood dried. I just don't know if it's worth running another test to get the same results.
Let's see if I can call the doctor one more time.
Do you know much about technical analysis?
No, I don't. What?
In the stock market, technical analysis is where you're drawing all the lines and you have a double shoulder, and then this happens and that happens. Everyone in all these investment groups, they're all looking at these things, and they're trying to compare one chart to another chart, and they're seeing where we've reached a resistance point. And like, this is what 50% of investors do, is they look at technical analysis, right? The other side of the coin would be not to look at trends in the patterns, but to actually look at the data of the company itself.
Right.
And so I didn't make it through the whole book, but one of the most popular books to read in investing is called A Random Walk Down Wall Street.
Okay.
And this guy just goes through like all of these pivotal points throughout history with the different bull crazy markets and how they come crashing down. He has all these stories, of the tulips and all of that. I just see so many people on Twitter and in my investing groups talking about the technical analysis, and they're drawing lines and being like, we are right where we should have been back in 2018 when the market reached its low. Like, if you draw a line under all the bottoms, like, we're just sitting in this holding period. And some of these guys will say, like, that's an indicator that we're about to drop back down. And then others are like, we've hit the bottom, we've established a base, and now the technical analysis is saying we're going to go up. The book says technical analysis is a bunch of garbage, that you cannot trust it ever.
Yeah.
And if there was ever a time to trust it, it would be now, when supercomputers can go through and look at all of these certain movements and compare them to every other time that movement has happened in history. And the computers don't find correlation at all. That's what his book says. Yet, you'll hear on a lot of investing channels, they're like, oh man, like we've hit the bottom twice now in the exact same spot. And every time it does that, it's a double bottom and it's bound to go down, you know?
Yeah, I don't know what to think about that. And then, something that Kramer was saying was, something like, because we are now up 50% from the bottom or something where we were a few weeks ago. If you look back at the last X amount of crashes, then this represents that we will have a fast recovery, and that's his reason for thinking that maybe we already hit the bottom.
Right, this market spent the last 3 weeks roaring off its lows. So after a not-so-hot day where the Dow lost 329 points, we were down a lot more than that at one point. The S&P shed 1.01%, but the Nasdaq actually inched up 0.48%. I got to wonder, have we already bottomed? I mean, isn't that the big question? That's what I heard all weekend. For a while, I was operating on the assumption that the recent rally might be temporary, that the S&P would revisit its March lows of 2,237, perhaps even taking out that level. I figured a retest was virtually, let's just say, inevitable. There was just too much weakness in the system all through here. We just knew things were going very awry. But now I'm feeling more confident about the future. I said it this morning on Squawk. I said, I'm just not going to be as negative. Why? In part, it's because the federal government has made some unprecedented moves to prop up the economy. There were some very good things in that $2.2 trillion rescue package. Mainly, though, it's because last week the Federal Reserve decided to go nuclear, pledging to buy the bonds of troubled companies and municipalities. Fed Chief Jay Powell adopted a Malcolm X approach to keep his economy alive by any means necessary. Remember, the Fed chief has got unlimited firepower.
But like that chart that the doctor showed us that we had in one of our first episodes, where if you look at any bear market that's over 20% down, and you look, again, I think it's technical analysis, technically. You're looking at other markets and comparing it. If you look at that, they've all taken over a year to rebound from that point. And anything that's gone down less or right around 20%, those have typically reversed and not done a V curve, but they've recovered in like less than a year. So when I look at all the bear markets, it feels like this is going to take a long time to recover, but we have been recovering pretty quickly. So I guess for every technical analysis you can look at, there's always something that's going to break the rule, right? We could be in a V curve and be like, man, remember that time with coronavirus? And then the next pandemic, everybody's going to want to say, let's look at what happened at coronavirus because that's what will happen again. And then that one doesn't fit the pattern either. So
yeah,
I think you can get in a lot of trouble when you try to think that things in the past are going to predict the future.
Unless it supports your opinion, then you got to focus on it exclusively. Let's talk about Dr. Fauci.
Okay.
And the insanity that ensued yesterday.
What was the insanity that ensued?
So
the theory, yesterday was Monday. I think all weekend there was this whole is Trump going to fire him?
Yes.
Isn't that the idea?
So we were getting into an argument off camera about this, and now we can hash it out. The story goes, Dr. Fauci went on some news show, and someone asked him if we had shut down earlier, could we have saved more lives? And he's like, of course we could have saved more lives. That's a stupid question, and I hate how dumb Americans are that we all fall for it,
This is you, not Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, I'm saying this now.
Right.
Of course, if we had 20/20 vision, we could all be billionaires, and we could save all the lives, and we'd know when the tornadoes were hitting, and we could have stopped the car crashes. Of course.
If we skipped all of the research and used the vaccine earlier, could we have saved lives?
Yeah, if you guys had made a vaccine for this 7 years ago, yeah, of course. So
you could logically say that if you had a process that was ongoing and you started mitigation earlier, you could have saved lives. Obviously, no one is going to deny that. But what goes into those kinds of decisions is complicated. But you're right. I mean, obviously, if we had right from the very beginning shut everything down, it may have been a little bit different. But there was a lot of pushback about shutting things down back then. To just say this is all happening because we got started too late. Obviously, if you look, could you have done something a little bit earlier? Would it have had an impact? Obviously. But where we are right now is the result of a number of factors. The size of the country, the heterogeneity of the country. I think it's a little bit unfair to compare us to South Korea, where they had an outbreak in Daegu and they had the capability of immediately, essentially, shutting it off completely in a way that we may not have been able to do.
I don't feel like anything Dr. Fauci said at all was attacking Trump. I don't feel like anything he said was out of line. I think he made himself incredibly clear in this news show. But then they take what he said and they just put, Dr. Fauci says if we had started mitigation earlier, we could have saved more lives. Okay, even still, that is an obvious statement. And I remember when...
Truthful statement, too.
Of course.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with anything, but it's just obvious.
Yeah.
If we don't drive cars, could we stop car wreck deaths? Yes, of course we could. But then, I don't know if people didn't watch the video or they don't read the article or they just read the headline, but people started thinking that he was attacking Trump and saying that Trump had done something, should have done something sooner. So then someone tweets something that's like, this is crap, like Fauci in February said that we didn't need to worry about this, which is partly true. Like there's videos of Fauci in January and February saying that like we don't need to panic, this isn't a big deal, you don't need to wear a mask, all these things.
Which also could have been taken out of context, just like the statement you're talking about now.
Yeah, and then at the end it's like, we need to fire Fauci.
It was like hashtag fire Fauci.
Yeah. And Trump retweeted this. And I think Trump is foolish enough to think that what Dr. Fauci was saying was an attack on him. You know, Trump's the most vindictive person ever. If anybody says something negative about him, he's going to call him a horse face and do crazy stuff. So then there's all this speculation. Well, is Trump trying to fire Fauci, or is he trying to suggest that he could fire Fauci? Everybody loves Dr. Fauci, so that would be insane if Trump decided to do that. So at the press conference, two crazy things happen. Dr. Fauci gets up on stage and has to explain himself. And then he has to say things about how Trump did a great job, and when he asked Trump to do more mitigation, Trump immediately said yes and did it.
The other point I wanted to make is that I had an interview yesterday that I was asked a hypothetical question. And hypothetical questions sometimes can get you into some difficulty because it's what would have or could have. The nature of the hypothetical question was, if in fact we had mitigated earlier, could lives have been saved? And the answer to my question was, as I always do, and I'm doing right now, perfectly honestly, say, yes. I mean, obviously, if mitigation helps, I've been up here many times telling you that mitigation works. So if mitigation works and you instigate it and you initiate it earlier, you will probably have saved more lives. If you initiated it later, you probably would have lost more lives. You initiated at a certain time. That was taken as a way that maybe somehow something was at fault here. So let me tell you from my experience, and I can only speak from my own experience, is that we had been talking before any meetings that we had about the pros and the cons, the effectiveness or not of strong mitigations. So discussions were going on mostly among the medical people about what that would mean. The first and only time that Dr. Birx and I went in and formally made a recommendation to the president to actually have a, quote, shutdown in the sense of not really shutdown, but to really have strong mitigation. We discussed it. Obviously, there would be concern by some that, in fact, that might have some negative consequences. Nonetheless, the president listened to the recommendation and went to the mitigation. The next second time that I went with Dr. Birx into the president and said, 15 days are not enough. We need to go 30 days. Obviously, there were people who had a problem with that because of the potential secondary effects. Nonetheless, at that time, the president went with the health recommendations, and we extended it another 30 days. So I can only tell you what I know and what my recommendations were. But clearly, as happens all the time, there were interpretations of that response to a hypothetical question that I just thought it would be very nice for me to clarify because I didn't have the chance to clarify.
And it felt really weird that, like, that's a weird way to put it. It almost felt like
he was backtracking, or that he had been like asked to say that.
It felt a little bit like he had been asked. Like, I don't know that I want to go that far, but like he felt pressured that he needs to come out and say very clearly, I am not saying the president did a bad job, which I do not think he said anything like that in the original interview. And then one of the reporters says, Are you doing this with your own free will or something like that?
Yeah. Are you
voluntarily doing this? Is someone making you do this? And you can tell he gets angry and he's like, how dare you suggest?
Of course I'm doing this.
Yeah.
In this interview, you said there was pushback.
Yeah.
Where did that pushback come from?
No, it wasn't. That was the wrong choice of words. You know what it was? When people discuss, not necessarily in front of the president, when people discuss, they say, well, this is going to have maybe a harmful effect on this or on that. So it was a poor choice of words. There wasn't anybody saying, no, you shouldn't do that.
Are you doing this voluntarily, or did the president?
No, I'm doing it. Everything I do is voluntarily. Please, don't even imply that.
But then Trump gets up, and it's like he's arguing the same thing, and they're like, I came to work today, and people are saying that I'm going to fire Fauci. I love Fauci. I would never fire Fauci. And everyone is like erupting. Then why did you tweet this? Why did you tweet this? And he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I just tweeted somebody's thing. What? Like, that's not my opinion. I just retweeted somebody.
When I closed the country to China, when I closed the China ban, whatever you want to call it, Anthony said I saved a lot of lives by doing that. I mean, am I correct? I don't want to put words in Anthony's mouth, by the way, and I like him. Today I walk in, I hear I'm going to fire him. I'm not firing him. I think he's a wonderful guy.
Tweet something that said fire Fauci.
Why did you fire Fauci?
I retweeted somebody. I don't know. They said fire. Doesn't matter.
Did you notice that when you retweeted it?
Yeah, I noticed everything.
So you retweeted it even though it said time to fire
No,
Fauci?
no, that's somebody's opinion. All that is an opinion.
And you elevated
No,
it.
I was called about that. I said, I'm not firing. In fact, if you ask your friends in the office, in the public relations office, I was immediately called upon that. And I said, no, I like him. I think he's terrific. Because this was a person's view. Not everybody's happy with Anthony. Not everybody's happy with everybody. But I will tell you, we have done a job the likes of which nobody's ever done. The mobilization, getting of equipment, all of the things we've done. Nobody's ever done a job like this.
The argument we had off camera was you were very offended that Trump tweeted something where he said #fire Fauci.
Yes.
And my rebuttal, or the way that I looked at it, and I have the tweet pulled up here, is that Trump is saying, sorry, fake news, it's all on tape. I banned China long before people spoke up. And he retweeted, I guess this is a congressman, Deanna Lorraine. And so in my mind, it's difficult because the tweet says kind of two different things, or not different, but two ideas. One idea is that Fauci said in February 29th that there was no reason to worry. And then this congressperson says time to fire Fauci.
Yeah.
Trump is retweeting the tweet because he wants to show that Fauci said this thing, but in the same tweet that you have to retweet by nature, like that it just throws the whole thing out there.
Okay. There's
another element of the tweet that you could read into, or it could be wrong, or it's like if you had three ideas and the middle idea is that's the home run hit, that's what I want to say,
Okay.
and you retweet that tweet,
Okay.
then the third thing it says might be off a little base, might be off base a little bit. And you're
Okay.
so in my mind, it's just like Trump, I'm not trying to stick up for Trump here. I'm just trying to make sense of all this, is that Trump is trying to say, look, Fauci said on February 29th that there was nothing to worry about. And it just happened to have a fire Fauci hashtag in it. And now the media is just looking at that hashtag and being like,
okay,
you're going to fire Fauci.
Okay.
When
So-
really I feel like Trump is trying to use the media to show more evidence by retweeting someone else's tweet.
That makes no sense because...
How does that not make sense?
Because if Trump's entire goal was to show that Fauci said on a certain date that this wasn't a big deal, then he could have just posted that video. And the bottom line is, if your theory is correct, and he was like, oh, I just meant this part and not the Fire Fauci part. He had the ability to say that when he was asked about it live on television. When
he was asked about it, he seems to say, yes, I wanted to retweet that tweet, and no, I'm not going to fire him.
And they're like, did you see that it said Fire Fauci at the bottom? He was like, yeah, I see everything. And they're like, well, then why would you retweet that? And he's like, what do you mean? It's just someone's opinion. What?
How can I put this in another way? Say somebody tweets, say there's a debate on Fstoppers of which camera has the best image quality. And somebody tweets out there, this is assuming you're active on Twitter, which you aren't, but let's say somebody tweets out there that the Nikon D850 has the best image quality of any camera and gives a really good explanation of like why the D850 is the best. And then in the bottom it says like,
I hate black people.
It says hashtag cancel Fujifilm. And you retweet the tweet being like, I knew the Nikon D850 was the best. And then everyone comes back and says, you hate Fujifilm. And you're like, I read that, but no, like I don't hate Fujifilm, but I do think the point.
That's what I would say.
I know, but like
I wouldn't say, yeah, I see everything, but that's someone else's opinion.
I don't know. I feel like that response is weird, but I guess I'm just looking at it as like he agrees with the tweet, and the tweet also had something else attached to it that caused suspicion. But this is the way that Trump works. Maybe Trump is trying to bring attention to this Deanna Lorraine. Maybe Trump is trying to get the media to talk about Fire Fauci to distract. Like, there's all these other, like, what do people on the internet call it? Like 4D chess moves and stuff where, like, maybe this depends if you think Trump is brilliant or you think Trump is a complete idiot. But maybe Trump is trying to bring attention to this one thing for some use in the future or to distract the media.
That's so dumb.
Is it, though?
Like, if he is trying to bring something to someone's attention, then bring that thing to someone's attention. Show the video of Dr. Fauci saying what you want to say. Don't retweet something that you don't want people to see. Trump obviously, here's what I believe happened.
I just think people retweet stuff in weird ways, and maybe there was no media that said
fine.
Fauci was telling people on, like, maybe he said that, but it took 3 minutes of him talking to get that point across. But in this tweet, it's very
fine.
Curated.
Sure. Trump had the ability in last night's press conference to explain that. And he chose not to. Which tells me, this is what I think happened. I think Trump read the headline or saw the interview and Trump's feelings got hurt.
Yeah.
And so he was like, how dare he? And then he saw someone calling for Fauci's firing. He didn't actually have to say it himself because he would get really, everybody jumped on his throat. So I'm just going to retweet this other person because, see, they hate Fauci. Fauci's doing a bad job here. Fauci shouldn't be talking bad about me because it's not my fault. It's Fauci's fault. And now he's stuck in this place where Fauci never even said anything bad about Trump. And we got Fauci getting up on stage, acting ridiculous, acting like he's scared and like somebody's forcing him to say these things when he never said anything bad in the original video. And then you're sticking up for Trump and like, it's totally reasonable that somebody would retweet something like that and then answer in the way that he did.
I'm not saying it's reasonable. I'm saying that I can see how it happens. Somebody retweets something that has like a good intention.
I get it.
And then you find out that the picture, the meme that was used in the tweet came from some organization that like is despicable. It happens every day on Twitter.
I get it. But when you have the ability to fully explain yourself, that's your chance. And you're, instead of being like, that's really weird the way that Trump did that, you're like, Trump's playing 4D chess because he's a genius with the media. What are you talking about?
I'm not saying. See, you're twisting all this stuff around just like all of this is being twisted around. I'm not saying Trump is playing 4D chess. I'm just saying there could be another reason that he's bringing this girl to the forefront. Like, maybe there's something we don't know. And you never know these things when you're the outsider looking in. Maybe there's something else going on. Maybe, I don't think we've even discussed this, maybe he was using this tweet to pressure Fauci that like, look, I am ready to fire you. And I've done it in a very public way, which I think is what the media has been saying.
Yes.
And that's the true narrative. I don't know. But when you go down one path or another and you try to like point at little things and take any of it out of context, I think that's a really dangerous...
I'm not taking anything out of context. I'm watching someone ask him the question, why did you retweet this? And I'm talking about his answer.
If you took this tweet out, man, are we arguing today? If we took this tweet and just removed the time to fire Fauci, would you have any problem with what he tweeted?
Yes.
What would you have a problem with?
Under the circumstances, it feels like he is being vindictive about what Fauci said on the news interview, which I do not think was negative towards Trump in any way.
I just read this whole exchange. I don't know that I mean, I feel like what Deanna said was that she has mixed up the facts. She is saying, Fauci is now saying that had Trump listened to medical experts earlier, he could have saved more lives. And when we started this whole debate 10 minutes ago now, that's not what the article said, right? It said that if we had started, we could have saved more lives. It didn't say that Trump had listened to medical experts, we could have saved more lives.
Well, correct.
Those are already being twisted just a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? So she's already kind of wrong in half of her tweet. That's not what the headline was, I guess. But then the second part of it, I don't know. Like, I'm so over this tweet. I don't think that it's all that crazy, because even Kristen last night was like, "Did you hear Trump's going to fire Fauci?" And I was like, I mean, I haven't really heard anything, but it just seemed like he already said he wasn't going to, even before last night's press conference. I think I had heard earlier in the day, like over the weekend. When was this tweeted out? This was like April 12th. This was 2 days ago this was tweeted. So, I mean, people were talking about this on Sunday. Was that April 12th? Today's 3rd. Yeah, on Sunday, people were talking about it. And then yesterday at night, he confronted it. So, I don't know. I never thought he was going to fire Fauci and watch him fire him tonight. How ironic would that be? But
I mean, I can't imagine he would. But I don't know. To me, I feel like I have tried to stick up for Trump when it's very difficult to do so. And last night was probably the low point for me in my view of Trump throughout this coronavirus thing. I just felt like he was on the defensive the whole time. He didn't need to be. He felt weak. He felt like he was, trying to attack first so that people couldn't attack him. And I don't know. I felt the whole thing made me very uncomfortable, and it was weird.
Well, I mean, the little bit of the clips I've seen that are in this video, it is very weird, no doubt. But this whole presidency has been weird, and I don't think anything is normal. And Trump's tweeted and retweeted much worse things than this. And I think, like you said, the media and Trump, like, they're all trying to take headlines and spin them. One, to like make the other look bad, but then two, to get the most views and to get the most advertising. I mean, that's how these websites work. It's how Fstoppers works to some degree. You want people to click and then read the article. This is just how the media works today. So, like, I don't view this as being all that crazy. I'm not trying to stick up for Trump or stick up for the media. I'm not picking sides here. Just to me, this didn't seem like all that big of a deal. Now, the video, the propaganda that he had in there did seem very strange. And when the reporter pressed him on what happened in February, I thought he handled that very poorly. And I think she had a very good point. And I don't like the way that he speaks to her, to women, to reporters. I don't like the way that he interacts with people at all. Like, it's horrible. It's not the way our president should act. So, I don't know. Can we move on from the whole press conference?
Well, I don't even know if we're at an hour and 20 minutes for this video. Obviously, a lot of waiting for this stupid test is going to be cut out. Yeah, but I don't even know what to do with the test. Like, this doctor hasn't gotten back to me. Like, obviously, I assume I never had it, but I want to just know if we did the test right. This isn't satisfactory to me.
I don't know what to do. Maybe we'll find out more information over the night. Maybe some friends of ours will take the test and come back positive, and then we will retake it tomorrow.
Here's the doctor right here. Do you mind if I put you on speakerphone and just record this conversation? Okay. So basically, what I did was I put the blood in. I put 2 drops of the fluid. We waited for 10, 15, and then 20 minutes, but the fluid never pushed across the actual test strip, and so the strip at the end never changed colors. So then, after approximately 15 to 20 minutes, I added more of the fluid, which then I saw quickly moving across the test, but at that point the blood had dried And I'm trying, I don't want to waste another test, but I want the answer.
Yeah, I would waste another test because, I don't know how much it affects it. Obviously it soaks the strip, the buffer is passing through, and that's what we're finding is that one other person emailed me with the same thing, and until they added more blood, more buffer, it didn't work, but eventually he got the results, and it was negative. Dave Nicholson did it, he was negative too, so no one's been positive yet, which I would expect. I wouldn't expect it to be positive.
Right,
but,
right.
But at this point, you probably should burn another test and just make sure you use like 2 drops of blood and maybe 2 big fat drops of buffer.
Okay.
And then you'll know for sure between 2 drops of blood and 2 fat drops of buffer.
I think I've got enough to do one more test. So.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't you do that?
Please,
like I said, the buffer is just the medium to push the blood through. So the buffer really, there's no magic there. I don't think that it matters that your blood was dried, but just to be on the safe side, just so you know you never had it, then.
Okay. Thanks very much, man.
I think these tests are going to be readily available in about 6 to 8 weeks. A lot more available than they are now. So I think that if you need more testing, or you're worried that you're going to burn through the only test that you have in order, I think there's going to be a lot more tests available, say by late May. You may even be able to buy these at Walgreens.
Cool. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
He's doing the scientific process. We didn't do it correctly.
Well,
we did it correctly. It's just it doesn't seem like the buffer took correctly. I don't know that. I would say do another test.
Let's do another test.
What happened?
I just shot blood everywhere. Did you not see that?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh my gosh.
You wouldn't make it as a healthcare worker, Lee.
That was like a stream shot like up to the ceiling of blood.
Really?
Yes.
All right, so round 2.
If I was 99.9% sure that it was going to come back negative last time, now like I've added many more 9s past the decimal point. But I'd rather just know. But man, I had my hopes up.
One test has come back negative, and we're running the second test to be sure because there was an issue with the buffer not wetting the strip and using the dry blood. If this one comes back negative, which you believe it will, what does that say about the flu that you had, though? Because there's a conclusion you're going to come to. The crazier conclusion would be you already had it, and maybe a lot of people in America are like you who already had it. But if you didn't have it, but you had a really bad flu, you said it was one of the worst sicknesses you've ever had in your life.
Yeah.
And let's assume that everybody else out there that's telling us the stories that are similar to yours are also the flu, then that means perhaps the 2019 flu season was one of the worst flu seasons 10, 15, 20 years.
Maybe.
And that's probably still happening. It's going on at the same time. I think in yesterday's video or 2 days ago, I said something like, what if they were on top of each other and it's making one look worse than the other?
Yeah.
Obviously, if the flu is 0.01% fatal, yeah, and COVID-19 is 1% fatal, then adding a 0.09% on top of COVID's not doing anything, right? It's such small numbers. But if they were closer, if COVID is 0.1% fatality rate and the flu is, let's say this flu season's 0.05 or 0.1 as well, then at that point, you're in a range where that could affect it.
Absolutely.
And if everybody is not being counted for regular pneumonia or regular flu or some other underlying condition because of the flu, then the COVID numbers are being propped up much higher.
Potentially. But something is still killing significantly more people than last year's flu. Maybe the numbers aren't 100% accurate, but...
Somebody on our Facebook video yesterday, and I know it's like the most unvetted way to bring up something is some random person in a comment, but he was from Germany, and he was just saying like the German tests, they've tested like 10% of the population, I think is what he said. A large percentage of people in Germany have been tested, and that the mortality rate is very low. It's like less than 1%.
Yeah.
So there are places that are showing lower rates, and then you have Italy that has like 10%.
Yeah.
So how do you make sense of that? At the moment, the only way is like the testing is just not thorough enough.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you could find that certain groups of people, like, some diseases seem to be more effective with certain races of people or genders of people or something.
Underlying conditions of people. Like there's, so many things that could be affecting the mortality rate.
Yeah.
So what do? Do we just sit here with some music and then we just cut back to
we could.
Final results?
You could just do like a time lapse.
Imagine if the deadlier version mutates to where it can't be passed as easily, then the mutations can kind of allow it to kind of peter itself out.
All right, here we go. Let's look. Nothing.
Sigh of relief or a bit of anger?
I'm certainly not a sigh of relief. I would be jumping for joy if I had already been through this. And now I'm mad that I wasted an extra test. All right, let's wrap this up. Guys, I'm sure you're bummed out. I don't have COVID.
That was the most disappointing ending ever.
Yeah, but that's the way it goes. So now I got to stay in quarantine.
The rest of your life.
Yeah, for who knows how long. So we will see you tomorrow.
Please stop!
What? Just documenting the insanity.